Yvonne, what a delight to meet you, to have this space to talk to you, to hear about your work. I just want you to know how grateful I am. I am really grateful.
Professor Washanga, it's a real privilege. Thank you. And thank you also for your work.
When I was thinking and reflecting about this interview,
Mm.
I wondered if you were to get a chance to introduce yourself, who is Yvonne A Owuor?
I will speak from the heart. I'm a human being formed and inspired and moved by the African continent, my home, my site of inspiration and also frustration. I'm a witness as I wander through the world. I am a person exercised by the twin questions. What does it mean for me to be human? What does it mean for me to be human and African? What does the humanity of the other mean for me? And it becomes one of those restless and continuous quests. I'm called Yvonne. I was named Yvonne by my mother I like to say, in a Luo way. I was named after President de Gaulle's wife. And my mother was so moved by the life and the spirit of that woman. And so she the way our culture does it, you tap into that spirit by naming, by providing a name and hoping that your daughter will become a fine and gracious woman, as one that inspires. So, and I was born in the evening. The evening is my talisman and my time. So at the Ambo. And my father was Owuor. I'm Nairobi born and Kenya fed and bred. I love to emphasize that because when I travel in the world, the immediate assumption when I meet my Western brothers and sisters is that I have been nurtured and moved by and fed by the things of the West. So I'm also an exorcist. That's it. I seek out the ghosts. I seek out our phantoms. I do confront them and name them and acknowledge them, and see that they will not haunt and destroy and traumatize the future, the children of the future, as well. Each one of them that one can call out, as scary as it is. So yeah.
What kind of writer do you think you have become?
I grew up with books. My parents surrounded us with books as companions, as family members, and ours was a kind of place. We were the kind of family that would move house in order to accommodate more books. So the cult of reading was very essential as part of our home culture. And well, I was also a very shy person, even in school. But what I did love and found refuge and companionship in literature. And I was also a mediocre student in almost subjects, apart from literature, composition, and language. So there's always been a passion and a love for the word and a love for reading and for the worlds that reveal themselves when letters come together. I didn't know I would become a writer then. I was preoccupied with the things that our parents wanted us to dream about: lawyer, doctor, engineer. When that fell apart, when I had come back from the UK with my master's degree in development communications, I was going to change the world. And when that fell apart, the thing that remained was writing. And writing wrote me out of the pit, and here I am.
Do you remember when you started writing?
Yeah, I think I do. Well, my mother doesn't have a fond memory of it, but she will repeat the story of my transcriptions on her wall. It was the magic of realizing that if you wrote "the fat cat sat on the mat," on the great canvas that was my mother's wall, It was the sense of the magic that with words you could actually conjure images. And I remember the fact I was probably a precocious 4-year-old. I started reading very young, 4 or 5. But I remember the sense of watching the ill-placed words on the wall, but not just watching those words, seeing the fat cat that sat on the mat. So yeah, and I don't think ever since then, I mean, right from childhood, I've never been without a pen and paper on my person, or a book either, or a book to read. So I've always written, but I never thought I could become, it would be my vocation. Yeah, that took much longer to realize.
Which writers do you read, and you think which one do you think influenced you
The most. Prof, I would feel very guilty if I chose one over the other. But I'm promiscuous in my literary passion. So I moved from Rabindranath Tagore to Dostoevsky to, of course, the adorable. I am a passionate fan of Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, and the idea of the quest and the journey. I think that ultimately only shows up in my work, the idea of the quest. And of course, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who we studied in school, Grace or God, especially Land Without Thunder. I think that was so influential in helping me realize we studied it so deeply and had a very deep dive, and thanks to all my literature teachers. The idea that one could use language, whichever language, to tell the story of a culture and a people. It imbued in me the sense of language, also as promiscuous as I am in terms of my literary predilections. Language as a vessel, and it seems to have no loyalties. So yeah, I'm sure I don't know if you remember. I'm sure you remember Land Without Thunder and its complexities and beauties. And it becomes this expedition into the land by the lake, using English.
Take me through the process.
The challenges, the process,
the process of writing, and the challenges you face, and how do you deal with those challenges?
When I started writing, the main challenge was that of not believing, the kind of lack of self-belief. It took 7 years to be able to call myself a writer. There were no templates, as you said, and we emerged, as you know, at that time when our beloved Binyavanga came into being, and then created a community for us, and it was very new then. And it was only then, growing into that community, that one acquired confidence to be able to say, okay, I am a writer. And it was not knowing how I was going to use that, how writing was going to, feed me. I didn't want to become a pest to the family or to the country. Yet it became an inevitable kind of calling. Thank goodness that the paths open. The literary path kind of creates its own resonances and life. What are the primary challenges is one of, I guess, the idea of discipline, of facing the text. I tell a lot of the young people who think that if they write, they will run into fame and fortune. I have to remind them, as in the same way I have to remind myself, do this if there's nothing else in life that you'd rather do. And if you know that even if you do this, the chances that you might be doing this entirely for yourself are also equally high. And if you're aware of that, just keep doing it then. And if you cannot endure that, please don't do this, because writing, as you know, it's not easy at all. So it's and then to understand, earlier days, it was understanding all these things that, there are no manuals to guide one with. I didn't know, for example, that, and this was That's why I needed something like Binya in my life. I presented him with something and he says, Yvonne, get the hell out of the way of the story. So to understand the world of story itself, the instincts and the desires of story to be told, that became a whole other lesson. And it took a long time. It took a very, very long time to get there. And then, of course, then the other things, the external, the ecosystem of the getting your work out. As an artist wants their work to be experienced and encountered. And there is a whole system that's already established that moves the work you've done into the public domain, and that too has its intricacies and its politics and its all these things that one has to learn to negotiate. Yes, yeah.
What is your work about?
My work is. I'm hesitating to use the word. My work is African. Maybe what I want to say is my work is moved by, inspired by, if the continent was an ocean, my work is the witness of a fish in that particular ocean. That is, it's the inspiration, it's the meaning, it's the hunger for the greatness, for the losses, for the hopes, and for my people and for the continent. Yes.
Why are those things important to you? Why do you care so much about
back to that question, what does it mean for me and for us to be human and to be African? It's part of my rage and anger. It's more than anger, the rage of the outrage of a people whose histories had been so willfully and intentionally broken and amputated from them. And done with such extreme malice and brutality, so that later a whole president, Sarkozy, can dare to say that history begins when the Europeans show up on the African continent. It's madness, it's a kind of insanity. And then to find that kind of attitude is actually the norm rather than the exception when you travel the world. I'm sure you've encountered it. So it's kind of like my, how do you say it? When you're waving your fist at the gruesome fates of history that have dared to erase the stories, the lives, the immensities of the African peoples. And there's no rhyme or reason. There was no rhyme or reason for that kind of the extent of madness and atrocity around that. So, and in a way, it's also made me, and it's an awareness. It's part of the walking into this world. What does it mean for me to be African, and what does it mean to be human and African in this world? One of the answers to that is to be a tomb raider. And a ruin seeker. I go into the ruins of our histories, our pasts, and into the crevices of our wounds, and I look within, and I witness to that which I feel and see and sense, maybe imperfectly, but to say, not only to say we were here, but also say we are here and we will be here. Yeah.
This beautiful young girl born in the evening and named in the Adhiambo, as you said, in the Luo way. You write in English. Why have you not written in Luo?
So many reasons. It was English that it is through English that I encountered the treasury of story, and I am of the school of the wasn't it Chinua Achebe that said that you will see what we shall do with it. I like to say, if people insist, I say I write in Kenglish. We have made language our own. We've made that language our own. We've appropriated it and we have made it ours. For me, it's part of the act of not just defiance, but of ownership. I actually believe very strongly. I have a passion for language. I love the sound of languages. I love the way words look. Words are my palette, and I guess part of the literary promiscuity means that I will seize whatever language I find and use it on the canvas of my page without any apologies to be made. But also, having said that, Prof, I think one of our responsibilities is that of translation. And if you wanted to talk about one of my pet peeves, is that perhaps our country and continent has not accorded enough power and agency to the power of translators. I think even within our own if you want, artistic traditions. We, the artists, are the mediums. Our job is to grab the thing, grab the mysterious thing. And after you grab it, it's the interpreters who show up to give meaning and transform it into all the ways in which it can be understood all over the lands, the different lands. So I hand over that responsibility of the languages of our continent to the absence and to the hope of translators.
I really love Kinglish.
Yeah.
Is English an African language?
English is one of the very many African languages. It showed up on our shores, and we have made of it that which we have made of it. And it has acquired so many forms. I don't know, I feel very strongly that language, as much as we like, as much as we want them to do so, I don't think languages care about nationalities. Languages have this ability, they've got this desire to survive and to thrive and to create their own forms of existence. So English can become Kenglish, can become Sheng, or can become Nigerian Pidgin or Creole, the creolization of English and French and all these. There's this, I'm maybe one day I would follow I'll follow language as a character. And it has this capacity. It's almost like it's a creature that seeks to survive. And even if it has to adapt to a landscape in order to speak to that landscape and also sustain its own life, it does. So yes, it is. It is. It showed up. That which shows up on our shores, we will take over.
What do you think is the role of an artist in the continent now, in the 21st century?
Do you know, Prof? There's an incredible zeitgeist. There's an incredible burgeoning of something within the continent. And it is, as you said, it's actually something emerging on its own terms. There's a prolific confidence, self-confidence also linked to that, and also immense experimentation. That has created the kind of works that transcend even the spaces and travel the world. I don't know if you know of the work of Kevo Abra, who is a stylist, but what a stylist. His styles emerge out of story. And the forms he creates out of the human being becomes the thing that travels, so that his work now shows up on Hollywood films and Hollywood television series. As universal imaging of a future, and he's he's a Kenyan guy. He's a simple Kenyan guy who grew up in Kibera, for example. So you've got these emergences of alchemists, and it's exciting. It's really exciting to always return to the continent just to be in the presence of that. And you ask, what then is the role of the artist? The role of the artist then is to do whatever it is they find themselves called to do, without necessarily stressing themselves out. But I think for the thinkers like you to remind us that we are witnesses, we are chroniclers, like you are also a chronicler. We are those who call in the future. And the future through a kind of more confident storying or an imaging of us. on the continent, and an imaging also most significantly, and I love this most, an imaging of the world, creating the world in our own image and likeness too, and with our grammar, that's also happening. So yeah, we are those who call in the future. Do you know, I would not have had the courage to write if it had not been for my father. The only mail I felt over my shoulder was the voice of my father saying, your father is the Northern Star. You can, you wander as far as you want, but he'll always be there for you. Basically it's not just the permission, but the cheering squad that says, fly, 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 fly. Fly up to the sun if you need to, and if you burn your wings and you fall down, I'll catch you. So I guess it's also been the privilege of the encountering of exceptional men. My brothers too are incredible men, and I've been surrounded by great and amazing men. But maybe I don't think it's necessarily the exception to the rule, but to understand the complexities of the spaces in which we do find ourselves. It's not necessarily, in my own experience, it's not as what Chimamanda says, it's not the single story. So I'm fortunate that the trajectory of even my own literary life, I will never ever stand beneath stand under the sun of that gift without announcing Binyavanga Wainaina. Prof, if Binyavanga had not seen that I was a writer, he knew I was a writer before I knew I was. If I had not been on my back 24 hours, demanding a story, even at 3 a.m., I'd get a phone call and he'd say, Yvonne, where's my story? I would never, ever, ever, ever had the courage to step into that water, into those particular deep waters. So in my story of encounters, both of patriarchy and in mine is perhaps a different kind of story, but it does not say that all those elements, all those forces of that restrict and constrain don't exist. And I'm sure, I'm in awe of those who have opened the ways for us. People like Toni Morrison, as you said, Michere Mugo. What they have done is they've cleared the wilderness for us and made it easier for us to walk through, and maybe with a certain arrogance and ease. And I'm grateful to them, deeply and profoundly grateful to them.
Thank you for finding this time,